Dear friends, welcome to When I Cannot Pray prayer series episode number 58. We have elaborately discussed various aspects of prayer, especially dealing with the spiritual doctrine of St. John of the Cross. We know that in the advanced stages of prayer, St. John of the Cross speaks of active purification of the will, the faculty that guides all other faculties of the soul. When actively it is purified, the will disposes itself for a deeper experience of God. Here in this episode, we deal with anger, gluttony, and sloth, the other three capital vices, and how we can deal with such vices and keep them under check for a comfortable disposition for God experience. Now, when we speak of anger is a strong feeling that comes when one is wronged or insulted, or when one sees cruelty or injustice, either real or imaginary. It is a vice when one becomes angry at everything and at everybody in every circumstance. Anger has such consequences as emotional cruelty, psychological pain, rage, assaults, and viciousness of tongue, insulting, abusing, cursing, and swearing to inflict damage, and many other terrible combinations of hatred, including class conflict, dissension, and party spirit. All these elements are detrimental to prayer or God experience. We need to discern well in prayer whether we are still a prey to these offshoots of anger. If not, we need to seek a suitable remedy to overcome this deadly sin or a deadly block towards God experience. In order to grow in healthy relations with God and our neighbor, anger should be done away with. Jesus very clearly says, "You have heard it said, you shall not kill, and whoever kills will be liable to judgment. But I say to you, whoever says to his brother, you fool, will be liable to fiery Gehenna." Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar and there recall that your brother or sister has anything against you, leave your gift there at the altar, go first and be reconciled with your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gift. Matthew chapter 5 verses 21 to 24. The tendency to anger, dear friends, can extend very easily to prayer, and instead of praying in a friendly, loving manner with God, our anger will lead us to negative consequences. Ultimately, if we are the victims of anger, we will almost certainly be angry that prayer has produced no results in our life. So anger has a lot to do with not able to really pray. The next vice is gluttony. Gluttony is a word that can spell many areas of our inordinate desire to possess or experience things in life. Gluttony flows from the disorderly animal appetite, the obsession with food and drink, to the point of living to eat rather than eating to live. This can harm prayer and our relationship with God. If this tendency for food and drink is not overcome, the roots of this tendency to gluttony could also extend to our spiritual life. The practice of prayer can become a substitute to material gluttony. We can become slaves to certain type of method or way we say our prayers and become gluttonous even spiritually, craving for satisfaction, pleasure, and gratification during prayer, and crave for attention and appreciation outside of our prayer. We need to discern well why such a tendency has crept into our prayer life. The genuine attitude in prayer ought to be to become aware of growing in inner freedom for God's personal design or plan for me and for you. If our prayer aims at only fulfillment or satisfaction of our odd desires, then it is no longer prayer, rather a time of entertainment and pleasure seeking. It is nothing less than an attempt to feed our gluttony that has taken on a spiritual garb. Then we come to sloth. It is laziness, idleness. It is the bosom of or companion of covetousness and is seen as the failure of the will to work purposefully and constructively for God. It is a mean sin that could not care less about others when there is no obvious and immediate personal gratification. The only antidote for this sickening attitude is perseverance and willingness and effort to remain aware of others and open-minded towards them, even and especially when there is nothing to be gained for self. Perseverance is the way by which the selfish laziness of the will is overcome through persistent acts of charity towards others and acts of devotion towards God without expectation of anything material or spiritual. We are to detach ourselves from the cravings of the animal soul for sensual satisfaction, even of a devotional, pious nature. This can be done by attaching ourselves to God and His goodness towards us as the source of our deepest fulfilment in prayer. These vices prevent our life towards God. Dear friends, all these vices in one way or the other can lead us astray or prevent us from engaging in genuine prayer. What is prayer is really wholehearted surrender to God and wholehearted service and love towards our neighbor. If that is done during our daily life, our prayer becomes almost a kind of intimacy with the Lord. That kind of prayer which we say spending 10 to 15 minutes or half an hour being in the presence of the Lord becomes more fruitful and powerful, enriching, and even to a certain extent satisfying and encouraging us in our daily life. Therefore, as we have concluded this part of the purification of the will, active purification of the will, we will be now beginning to understand how we can prepare ourselves passively to receive God's presence, God's love, God's inflow of grace in our hearts and minds and in our whole being during prayer. Therefore, let us try our best to purify ourselves actively and leave the rest in the hands of God so that God Himself, as the divine doctor, will operate on us and help us to become healthier, happier, and genuinely true followers and disciples of Jesus, our blessed Lord. God bless you.